What's going on? This is Ryan with Automatic Comics, and up next we are going to go over a pretty crazy story I came across recently on the comic book collecting subreddit. I thought that there were a lot of things that we could learn from this, a lot of different areas we could talk about with this one, so strap yourself in, get ready for this story. I feel like there's a lot to gain from this one. All right, so here we are. This is the comic book collecting subreddit. And this was the story that I came across that just really caught my attention with everything that was basically going on with this one. I feel like a lot of mistakes and a lot of misunderstandings, this kind of thing. So here's the title. I feel like the world's biggest idiot. I paid triple for a Bronze Age Grail. I'm out a ton of money as well as a ton of happiness comic book collecting wise. So I don't know if I need to read the entire thing, but basically the short of it is that he always wanted this House of Secrets 92 and a 9.2 or above. He basically says he doesn't have a lot of money. He's a school teacher. He has 2 kids. He's married. And his wife is not into his collecting. She doesn't like him spending a couple $100 every few months. She definitely isn't going to like him spending this amount of money. So what did he do? He saw a 9.2 on eBay for sale, made an offer. Offer was accepted. And he says 7,500, but I can't find that sale. I did find a best offer that was 8,500. So I don't know if that's, and it was in May when he said he purchased this. And so I don't know if he's maybe not telling the truth here on what he paid or what, but we'll talk about that. But regardless, 7,500 or 8,500 for this 9.2 House of Secrets 92. If you're not familiar with House of Secrets 92, this is it. It's this first appearance of Swamp Thing. Amazing Bernie Wrightson cover. Awesome book. 9.2 is an extremely difficult grade. You can see over here that a 9.2 puts it in the top 5% of copies. So very, very nice copy, in a 9.2. But back to the story. So the person accepts. He doesn't have the money to pay for it. Well, he says he does, but if his wife sees this, she's going to murder him. It sounds like. And if you're ever familiar with that story about it's the Amazing Spider-Man 14. It's called the Angry Girlfriend variant. The story behind it is potentially a little disturbing on what all went down there. So I'm not going to go into too much detail on it, but you don't want him to end up with his book looking like this, where it has, lots of marker and everything all over it. Somebody eventually got it graded. I can't remember what it is. It's like a 1.8. I can't remember. They've got the thing over the grade. But yeah, so obviously he doesn't want that to happen to his House of Secrets 92. So he took out a 0% finance. Sounds like it says 0 balance until 18 months credit card. And he's paying it off kind of like behind the scenes, trying to keep this, from his wife. So already not great decisions here. But yeah, so he's got this book now. And then what happens is we have another copy come up for sale that's a 9.4. He talks about it here, and we'll get into this one. This 9.4 ends up selling for less than what he paid for the 9.2. 9.4 sold for, I think he said like 5,300. We'll talk about that. Yeah, right here. So sold for 5,300. We'll get into that too, which then resulted in him making this Reddit post, which for one, if I was doing something that I was trying to keep a secret, I probably wouldn't post about it on the internet. But regardless, this caused him to panic and make this post, and which I'll tell you, it was for nothing. So then, he says like there's another CBCS 9.4 that's up for sale still, and it's listed for 20,000. So he doesn't understand how you can have, this low sale and this other book listed for 15,000 more, all that kind of thing. So where do we start with this? Because there is a lot going on here to unpack. So the first thing, I kind of made a list of some topics that I thought would be interesting to discuss with this that we could go over. And the first one is just in general, making a huge purchase that you can't afford. I understand the appeal of wanting to get some of these books. I have, bid on some things where I'm like, well, it makes myself a little nervous when I'm making those purchases as well. But I'm always buying within my means, and I'm always buying with cash that I have. And so, this situation, if you are, and I know I've seen people say they hide these kinds of things from their spouses and that kind of stuff. I mean, don't do that. Like my wife knows every single thing that I purchase. I show her the books. I talk about them. And when I sell stuff, she sees the stuff that I sell. And so, I mean, I'm very open with my wife about what I buy and sell with comics. And I mean, I don't recommend doing this. Hiding a massive purchase like that. It ultimately cannot end well. Like at some point, it's probably going to come out, or someone's going to find out, and there's going to be hell to pay for what's going on here. So that's the first thing. Making a huge purchase that you really can't afford. I mean, these are comic books. Like I love comic books. I've got a bunch of stuff. I've really gotten into collecting over the last 4.5 to 5 years. I get the appeal, but they are still just comic books. It should not take priority over other major things in your life, in my opinion. Some people may disagree, my opinion. Next thing was putting this on a hidden credit card to pay this comic off. I mean, if you are hiding this stuff from your significant other, I mean, just, you got to reevaluate what you're doing here. I do not recommend that. I get the appeal of trying to pay it off on, like a 0% finance, credit card or something like that. But anything could go wrong, in a year and a half. You could have some emergency that comes up and you need all of your money. Like he says, he's got 2 kids. What if, surgery or, something like that happens, or you need it for, someone, you decide that you want to get a new house, or you want to make an addition to the house, or, anything. And you're having to sink all this money into this comic book. And I do not recommend, that approaching this that way. Like, I mean, my personal method, and I've talked about this with my buying tips, I buy with cash that I have. I do recommend that if you're trying to go for something bigger like that, set the money aside. The book will still be there in the future. Sell things as you have to, put the money aside as you have to, and then make that purchase when you've got that cash. I mean, I know it's tough when certain things come up that you don't want to pass on them, but it's just, to me, I think that's just it's a safer way to go. This is so much risk that is going on in this whole story right here. But that's just the start of it. So, and I've got just the hiding it from your significant other. I mean, there's no way this ends well. I mean, she will find out at some point, and maybe then she forces you to sell it. You have a huge fight. I mean, this is the type of thing that could be a divorce topic. Like hiding a $10,000-ish purchase from your spouse. I mean, that's, you got to really think about what you're doing there with this one. So just some things that I would recommend reconsidering if this is how you are approaching the hobby. Now, I know he says his goal was to have a 9.2 or higher. I don't know if he has a lower grade copy, but that's one of those things I talk about where it's like building up to that copy that you ultimately want to get. Start with that lower grade copy, and then over time, upgrade that copy, put money aside, buy a higher grade one, sell your lower grade one. I mean, if we take a look at a House of Secrets 92, I mean, you've got a 9.2 here, and this is the sale that I think is this 8,500 sale. You've got a 9.2, $8,500. But if you go down just to like a 6.0, which is a very presentable copy of this book, recent sales of 6.0, $1,450. I mean, you can have a book that you're very happy with, that you're spending 6 times less. And over time, you can upgrade to that. I mean, when you're getting up into those really high grades, like the 9s in this book, that is a rare book, and you're going to pay a huge premium. And so if this is something where that's a real struggle financially to pull off, like, get the copy that, look for the copy that's the higher end of that price compression. And like I've talked about price compression on books a lot before. And this is an example of one where you get a lot of price compression in this book. And so you can see a 6.0, 1400, 6.5, 1800, 7.0, 27, or 2200. But you get a lot of price compression here in these grades, like a 3.0, 800, all the way up to a 5.5 at 1200. I mean, a 5.5 is a much better looking book than a 3.0 on average, typically. And so say go for that 5.5, go for the, maybe the 6.0, you get a lot of bang for your buck there. So if you're looking to pick up a book like this, there are a lot of times where these books have this price where they start to gap up, where they get more and more expensive quickly. And that's usually when you get to that rarer point, when you start getting where you're in the better than 50% of copies, or you're better than 10% of copies. There are these big gaps. You'll see this in books like Batman 121 as well. That book has tons of price compression, where you might pay $1,200 for a 1.0 and $2,000 for a 4.0, or a 4.5. So it's like, look for this type of activity here and try to find that book that's on the higher end of it, and get the most bang for your buck on the book. Because if there's ever that price expansion where it starts to spread out again, you're going to be positioned the best. So that's probably where I would have started. If I was this person and I really wanted a House of Secrets in 92, I would have started with something like a 5.5, maybe a 6, and then tried to, maybe buy and sell some of those comics you've been buying, every few months, and work your way up to getting that really high grade copy. So there's that. Then in his story, he also talks about needing to have this book reslabbed. So let's see here. He goes, lastly, my 9.2 was graded a few years ago, pre-QR code, meaning I likely need to get it updated or reslabbed for its own protection. Heard CGC slabs them in a more thorough, longer lasting, more protective way these days, and than they did a few years ago. That I've never heard that. I would say that is not accurate. The only real difference in the cases nowadays, I would say, is just maybe they're a little bit sturdier, have a little more clear plastic, but you've got books that have been in these cases for 20 plus years now. You in no way need to spend the additional money to get this book reslabbed, than just to think that you're protecting it more. Now, there's something to be said about the chamber paper that's inside that helps collect the gases that come off the paper and all this kind of stuff. But even with that, maybe you get it reslabbed once every 10 or 15 years. And I don't think that that's an additional expense he needs to make. I do not agree with the fact that just because it's pre-QR code, which is very recent, within the last year, that you would need to get your book reslabbed. I don't agree with that. All right, so now let's get into something this is where this story I feel like got real interesting. And this is with the 9.4. So this 9.4, he said, ended up selling for $5,300, or $2,200 less than his 9.2. So first, let's look at that 9.2. So what I have is I have my eBay store, which gives me access to this eBay sales tool called Terapeak. And so I can look up House of Secrets 92 CGC 9.2. And so I can see every copy that sold for a number of years. And in this case, I'm just, I'm going back 2 years. And there's only in May of 2023, there's actually only one in 2023 on eBay, which he said is where he bought it. And that was for $8,500. And if you go to Go Collect and you look at a 9.2, you can see that the only one was a best offer, which was at $11,750. And see, that's the thing. Go Collect, they don't give you, when it's a best offer, they can't see the sales data. And so they don't actually have the official number. This is the same sale. You can see it's the same picture and everything. But if you go to Terapeak, or if you go to GPA, you can see the actual sales number, which was $8,500. It's here on Terapeak. And then if we go to the 9.2 on GPA, same thing. One sale in 2023, $8,500. Now, it's possible maybe the seller had something wrong in the title, and that's why I can't see the sale. But this does seem to be that he paid $8,500, for this book, plus shipping and tax and all that kind of stuff. But so there's that. So I think he probably paid $8,500. But then he talks about this 9.4 that sold for $5,300. So the first thing you can see here is that there is no 9.4 sale on GPA for $5,300. That is an immediate red flag. that is something where it makes me go, okay, this probably is not a real sale. Then if we go over to Go Collect, you can see they do have this sale here. Now, Go Collect and GPA seem to have different ways of getting their sales data. I don't know for sure, just because of what I showed you with what you can see with the prices that are accepted or not. I'm guessing one has access to the API on the back end, the other one doesn't. That is my guess. But I'm going to say that this sale here was a scam. And I'm like 99.9% certain that this was a scam. So, we can see why. So this is that sale here. You've got this auction that went for $5,300. This was sold by a seller with a number on the end with zero feedback. These are two of the immediate red flags when you see a scam seller. They very often have some series of numbers or letters or whatever making up their name. And then they have a number at the end because they just make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that kind of thing. And they have zero feedback, selling a hugely expensive book. Now, most people recognize this as a scam immediately, but some people get overtaken by greed and they think, oh, well, maybe it's real. And so they bid on it. And so they got enough suckers to bid on this book up to $5,300. So somebody, quote, won this book for $5,300. They will never receive this book. I will guarantee you they will never receive this book. What might happen is the person might ship a empty box, and the person will get an empty box, and then they'll have to start fighting to say that they didn't actually receive it. And, you never know what's going to go on there. Usually eBay will side with the buyer, but there's a risk there. Because there was actually a comment that this person made lower down in the actual comments where somebody mentioned that this might be a scam. It's not a might. This is a scam sale. And he said, oh, I should have bid on that one anyway, because, maybe it was real. And then I could have gotten this thing for this great deal. And then even if it's not, I can get my money back. And with that, like, there's no guarantee you get your money back. There is no guarantee that eBay sides with you. If scammers do this, it means it works some of the time. This is very common stuff that scammers pull. It works some of the time, and it works enough that they risk it. And so it's possible this person would never get their money back. And even if they do, it might take 2 months to get their money back, 3 months to get their money back. Maybe they have to file something with their credit card and try to fight it with their credit card. And so now you're not only out, the $7,500 or $8,500 you paid for the 9.2, you're also out another $5,000 that you had to probably pay the credit card bill by then before you get your money back. So there is a lot of risk that goes there. So if you see something like this with a 0% feedback and a very expensive book, just be wary. I'm not saying everybody that has zero feedback is a scammer. I've sold books to people with zero feedback. I've bought things from people with zero feedback before, but this is something that should really be a red flag when it's a book that's over $10,000 and, no feedback. So that's the first thing. Now, the other thing, what you'll find with scammers is that they will always grab some picture, I think typically from Go Collect. I think that's likely what they use, either Go Collect or probably Heritage. And so with that picture, like right away, I could tell, I was like, that picture is probably from Heritage. So if you go to 9.4, and I started scanning through these pictures because this one has it has the serial number. So you can find that serial number if it had sold. And since we know this person doesn't actually have that book, they got that picture from somewhere. And so I found this one. Let's see, it was on Heritage Auctions. I think it was this book here. Yeah. So you can see here, this is 12931420001. That's the serial number. Go over here, Heritage sale 12931420001. Same serial number. This is the exact same picture. I mean, you can see the white through the back here. That's typical for how Heritage takes their pictures. That's how I recognized it right away. So you can see the white through there, and we go over here. It's the exact same picture. You can especially see it when you look at the back, because on the back you can see it's got these kind of like these shadows from whatever lighting Heritage used on the label. And then you go over here to the Heritage site, You can see the back picture. And it's got these shadows. I mean, it's just like straight copied from the heritage site and listed there. And they often will try to go back a few years to so maybe it's less likely that someone catches it. But I mean, with Go Collect, you've got these pictures. It's real quick and easy to find that kind of stuff. And so if you are looking to spend thousands of dollars on a comic, do a little due diligence. Look for things like this, that this is an obvious scam. If you are looking to spend this amount of money on a comic, you should have a pricing service, whether that's something like Fanalytics that's coming out, in the future, or something like Go Collect or GPA. I mean, you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars on these comic books, and you don't go cheap on the wrong stuff. Don't skip out on paying $5 or $10 or whatever, $15 a month for one of these services, when that could save you thousands of dollars and huge headaches by not having them. So I know a lot of people like to just use eBay and think that that's sufficient, but it really isn't, especially when you're spending this kind of money. So I always talk about that, getting a pricing service, and it is critical, and it will help with situations like this. Now, there were a couple other things that he mentioned in this story. One of them was how he was pricing these books. So he said, the 9.4 sold for $5,300, which means that his book is now worth half of that. So he's now saying his book is worth $2,600, maybe $3,600 if he's being, like generous. So again, this tells me he probably doesn't have a pricing service, because if he did, he would be able to look at this and go, okay, a 9.0 in August sold for $6,000. A 9.4 sold for $14,000 in June. You can see his sales. Yeah, you can see that an 8.5 sold for $2,600. I think that was actually a really good deal, because then you see an 8.0 went for $3,300 in September. So there's no way that his 9.2 is worth $2,600 or $3,600. And so, I mean, it's just, you've got to have these types of services, and just like the awareness of that pricing information, especially if you're spending this type of money on these comic books. Now, the other thing he said was that because of this, it's now taken his joy out of owning the comic book, because of this low sale. If you are spending this amount of money on a comic and one low sale ruins owning that comic for you, you should not be spending that amount of money on that comic book. That means that it is too significant of a piece of your, assets, that, one low sale ruins this thing for you. Just this whole situation had all kinds of issues with it. It starts with buying something that you really can't afford, hiding that from your spouse, panicking about a scam sale, not being able to recognize a scam sale. I mean, there's so much going on here. I just thought that this would be something that was useful to talk about, because I feel like there are a lot of people that would potentially put themselves in this situation, because, when people really love something, they really are into something, they're willing to, make some sacrifices, and you really gotta, balance that out with the other aspects of your life. And in this case, I'm not trying to beat up on this guy. I just think that he made a very poor choice. However, I do think that he's fine. Whether he paid $8,500 or $7,500, I think if he wanted to sell that book today, he could pretty easily get at least $8,000. I think that book is solidly in the $7,500 to $8,000 price point. And so I don't think he has any concern there. If I was him, I would be selling that comic book and paying off that credit card. that's what I would be doing. Maybe he watches my channel. I don't know. If he does, I would be selling that comic and paying off that credit card, and just at that point, hoping nothing else comes of it. But that's my suggestion for this whole kind of like fiasco purchase here. But yeah, those are the lessons I think that could be learned from this little incident here. Go out and get a pricing service if you're buying stuff like this. It's invaluable. Like I said, I pay for multiple different pricing services. Really don't try to go cheap on things that help you make smart buying decisions. All right, hope you enjoyed that video. Purpose of this isn't to make the person feel bad about the purchase or anything like that. It's just see what we can learn from that, what we can gain from that story that was on there. If you did like this, if you'd like to see more videos like this, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. I've got more videos over here. If you'd like to watch some of my other videos, the subscription button is right here. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, I would really appreciate it. And I will see you in the next video.